And in the month of Ramadan, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would normally make itikaf as well. He was making itikaf, and in the last ashara, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came out and he saw Sahaba praying on their own. So he gathered them and he led them in additional prayer after Isha Salat. And he prayed to almost a third of the night. Long prayer. And then the following morning, the news spread that last night the Prophet ﷺ led the people in additional prayer. So people the following night all flocked even more. Can you imagine praying behind Rasulullah ﷺ and listening to Quran from Rasulullah? Allahu Akbar. Many people, mashallah, when they go in Ramadan to Umrah, when they hear Sheikh Sudais and mashallah other Mashaykh of Haramain Sharifain, people enjoy their recitation. But can you imagine the recitation of Rasulullah himself? So the following night even more people gathered. And the Prophet ﷺ led them in Salat until almost midnight. And the following day, the news spread out. Some people missed it. The first night it was just spur of the moment, nothing was announced. So only those who were there, they joined in. Some people passing by saw the prayer going on, they joined in. But the following night, second night, even more came, expecting the Prophet to lead them in a congregational prayer. And so they joined in, but some people still missed out. So on the third night, the masjid was totally full. And the Prophet ﷺ started leading them in salah. And Abu Zar Ghifari radiallahu anhu, he says, the prayer was so long, we thought we were going to miss Sahri. Almost the whole night. And then the fourth night, even more people came. But the Prophet was in itikaf, and the Sahaba had prepared a sort of a tent-like in the masjid for the Prophet ﷺ so that he can have his privacy there. And the Sahaba were gathered and they were waiting for the Prophet to come out and lead them in salah. And the Prophet ﷺ led them in Isha Salat and then retired to the tent which had been set up for the Prophet in Masjid Nabawi. And so they waited, and nobody dare call the Prophet, because Allah has forbidden that in the Quran. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُنَادُونَكَ مِنْ وَرَاءِ الْحُجُرَاتِ أَكْثَرُهُمْ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ صَبَرُوا حَتَّى تَخْرُجَ إِلَيْهِمْ لَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُمْ. Don't call my Prophet out. If you need something from my Prophet, then you don't call him, you wait until he comes. So nobody dare call Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But everybody was waiting anxiously for the Prophet to come and lead them in prayer. So what did they do? Started making themselves heard, with gestures, coughing, whatever, so that the Prophet ﷺ's attention would be alerted and the Prophet would come. But the Prophet didn't come out all night. And the Prophet ﷺ the following morning said, I was aware of your presence and you wanting my attention, but I deliberately did not come to lead you in salat. Had I done so, I was afraid it would have become obligatory, and then you wouldn't have been able to fulfill its right. So the Prophet ﷺ, out of mercy for his ummah, the fourth night, he did not lead the people in salah. Now how many rakats were prayed? There are narrations to say that the Prophet ﷺ led people in 20 rakat. Because the Prophet ﷺ's noble practice was that in congregational prayers, Rasulullah ﷺ would lead people lightly. He wouldn't pray long rakats. The Prophet ﷺ said, whosoever amongst you leads the people in salah, then let him lead a salah light. فَلْيُخَفِّفْ. And light salah, not very long. People have been working, and some people might be ill, tired. If you start praying long salah, then it might become too much for them. It might become a burden for them. But individually, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would lead people in salah, would pray in such a long rakat, 6-7 siparas in one rakat, and not rushing like the people do now, very calmly, slowly. Once the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was praying in the masjid in the evening, at night, and a Sahabi passed by, seeing the Rasulullah praying, he said, wow, That's my special honor. Just me and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he joined the Prophet in salah. The Prophet had just started Surah Baqarah. So he goes, wow, what an honor to pray. Just me and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the Prophet was reciting, he thought, Surah Baqarah, no problem. 100 verses, the Prophet is bound to make ruku. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam crossed 100 verses, he thought to himself, well, under Surah Baqarah, definitely ruku coming up. The Prophet completed Surah Baqarah, made dua, started Surah Al-Imran. He said, that's tough, but under Surah Al-Imran, definitely the Prophet will make rakat. So he completed Surah Al-Imran, made a long dua, started Surah An-Nisa. Well, Surah An-Nisa definitely has to be ruku. The Prophet completed Surah An-Nisa, started Surah Ma'idah. The Sahabi said, I'll leave that to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, between him and Allah. I'll just call it a day. Such a long salat Rasulullah would pray when he would be on his own. He joined willingly. So the last Ramadan of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 5 months before he left this world, according to English Gregorian calendar, the Prophet passed away in June, in the month of June. So 5 months before that, what month will that be? 5 months before June. If June is the 6th month, you take 5 away, what month does that leave? January. And January by any standards is winter, yeah? Even in Saudi Arabia, January is winter. And in winter, the days are shorter, the nights are longer. If you ever been to, mashallah, Umrah in December, January, Maghrib is around 5 o'clock, 5:30. 5:30 Maghrib, say 6 o'clock, then Isha will be around 8 o'clock. Fajr is around 6 o'clock, or 5 o'clock even say. So if Maghrib is 6 o'clock, Isha is 8 o'clock, say for example, argument. And Fajr is 5 o'clock, so it must end around 4 o'clock, the Sari. Sahaba said the last night the Prophet prayed with us so long, we thought we were going to miss Sahri. So if they were going to miss Sahri, that means the Prophet started praying teravi around 8 o'clock until almost, or even say 3 o'clock. So how many hours that? 7 hours. So if 7 hours roughly, say 6 hours, take another hour away. 6 hours roughly, the Prophet ﷺ prayed in congregation when the masjid was full. So don't tell me he prayed only 8 rakat. So if he would have prayed 8 rakat, how many minutes for each rakat? 45 minutes each rakat. And the Prophet ﷺ used to get angry at those imams who